Time for the grind. Up to this point progress was going pretty well, but figuring out how to quickly grind the helmet ended up ironically taking a lot of time. I'd tried many methods, none of which really worked. I even managed to shoot my window out with a chair pneumatic lift trying to find shafter material. I eventually bit the bullet and went all out making a small and ugly belt grinder. With a piddly 8mm shaft on gritty old skateboard bearings, it's amazing I managed to grind the whole thing before the inevitable happened. The hook and loop grinding pad worked well for the finer grits, but it would have been hard to keep the rough grind smooth. After going over with a 220 grit, I applied some oil and went over it in circles with a 120 grit sand sponge to get a matte finish. When fitting the nasal, I quickly realised that getting the whole thing to fit around would be very difficult. It'd need to match the dome and the helmet. Change of plans. I used a different method for marking where to cut this time. This worked a lot better than the string. It's a good idea to paint the interior to prevent it from rusting. Black would have looked better, but I already had the silver. Drilling holes into the helmet was a little daunting. I made doubly sure I had the right positions. For setting the rivets, I drilled partly into the end of a steel bar held in a bench vise. Cutting the 1/8 inch rivets with regular pliers was tough but not impossible. To set them, the first hit with the smooth side of the hammer to squash them down a bit and expand to fill the hole. Then the ball peens used to round them over. The rivet holes for attaching the brow band were marked out with this strip of paper. The paper is half as wide as the brow band and the positions were marked by dividing the circumference of the helmet, which was measured with a piece of wire, by however many holes were required. In this case 16. I had to move the press to fit the helmet in. For lining the helmet, I'd bought a leather jacket at a charity shop since it was a good deal cheaper than buying the required leather raw. A template is stuck on with carpet tape to cut out the 6 gauze that suspend the helmet on the head. For the chin strap I felt the leather was too thin to hold, so I taped and sewed 2 bits together. For the brow band I'm using my favourite belt. I couldn't find a real leather belt in any of the charity shops I'd visited. Using a gauge and a awl I punched a series of holes to greatly aid the stitching. The awl is just an Allen key I ground to a point and the gauge is just snipped from thin scrap. The backing is a brand new yellow pages that arrived that day. It's about all they're good for. Holes were punched into the brow band using a punch I had made from the belt grinder's sheared shaft. Real leather punches are easy to find though. The washers are crudely snipped from the same thin scrap. Setting these rivets is more or less the same as before. It's a shame I didn't get it on camera, but I caught myself on fire when grinding the rivet set to clear the edges of the nasal for the last 2 rivets. The polyester of my favourite shirt melted and stuck to my hand when I patted it out, but the funny part is that I made a comment about this potentially happening in a previous video. I guess I didn't heed my own warning. With the brow band riveted on, I could start stitching the gauze in. Even leather this thin was tough to push the needle through, so I punched it as well. I had a hard time getting a good shot of the stitching, but there wasn't anything too interesting about it. Curved needle made it a lot easier. With the gauze in place, I only had to thread them together. I just used some regular string. To finish the helmet off, I riveted a buckle I'd made earlier onto the chin strap. And that's the helmet complete. I'm more or less pleased with how it came out. There's a whole bunch of imperfections and blemishes if you look closely, but I'm pleased it wasn't a total disaster. Really, the only thing I'm disappointed with was how long it took. The raising, shaping and planishing all went pretty fast, but then everything ground to a halt, so to speak, when it came to grinding it smooth. I really wasted a lot of time pursuing a bunch of bad ideas and didn't get anything done before my finals hit. I might have a go at making a more complex helmet at some point, but I got a few other things I'd like to do before that. All in all, it was a fun project. Thanks for watching. Bye!